lost. Guided by so-called psychologists and philosophers, people in the modern age do not know the activities of the subtle body and thus cannot understand what it means by transmigration of the soul. In these matters, we have to take the authorized statements of Bhagavad Gita 2.13. Dehinosmin yatha deha kaumaram yuvanam jara tatha dehantar praptir garastatra na muhyati. As the embodied soul continuously passes in the body from boyhood to youth and old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change unless all human society understand this important verse in Bhagavad Gita. Civilization will advance in ignorance, not in knowledge. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, you see, purport is very big, but the crux is very simple. The living, see, when the mind becomes polluted by desires of sense gratification in the material world, the living entity drops into material conditions. It is the mind, the whole of Bhagavad Gita is only talking about mind. Man manah bhav mad bhakto, or chanchalam hi manah Krishna. Actually, the living entity is guided by his mind. All the desires are born there. ध्यायतो विषयान पुंसा संगस्तेषु पजायते संगात संजायते कामात क्रोधो विजायते. So everything is developing in the mind. Kama, krodha, sanga. Where is all this coming from? Where are all these things? They are in the mind. So by mind, so Krishna is also saying, mind is the best friend of the living entity. Mind is also his worst enemy. Everything is happening in the mind. You see, like people, why do they fall in love? Because mind dictates that. Why do people hate something? Because the mind dictates that. Everything is dictated by the mind. And as a result of that, the living entity transmigrates from one body to another. Dehino asmin yatha dehe kaumaram yovanam jara tatha dehantar praptir dhiras tatra na muhyati. One body to another. Mind. It's always a bewilderment of mind which leads the body, the living entity, to take one body after another. So the process of liberation is actually the process of purification of the mind. You see, we have been emphasizing that one should constantly chant the holy names, one should study the scriptures. It's not because, hey, I'm some Prabhupada fanatic, I'm just saying, because I love Prabhupada or something. No, this is a fact. You have to understand. The more you associate with material energy, the more your mind gets polluted. You may think it's a very noble task to maintain the family, to run your profession, to be very proficient and so many things. But all that is simply nonsense. At the end of this life, if you remember some engine manufacturing company or some bank or some lawyer firm, what will be your position? What will be your destination? Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, that all my life I have wasted in running around here and there. Now in this old age, I am regretting that I have not worshipped you, O my Lord. What will be my destination? Our desire, our mind is sum total of all the desires, and all desires are coming from all the contact with material energy. So profession, family, nation, society, hobbies, all this together are constituting what our mind is. At the end of our life, if we remember that, what is going to happen? This narration, this talk is taking place between Narad and Prachina Barhi. Prachina Barhi is a very accomplished grahastha, very expert in Vedic rules and regulations, but he's overly attached to family life. And therefore, Narad Muni is warning him through the story of Puranjan. And therefore, he's explaining to Prachina Barhi that, my dear king, you are such a fool that you don't know what has to be done and what is not to be done. Because everything that we do forms an impression in our mind. And if these impressions are not cleared before death, will surely be carried into another body. What will be the use of becoming a most pious lady in some heavenly planet? When you could have just gone back to Godhead in this life itself. Because simply living without following rules and regulations in this material world, everyone is in female consciousness. Eventually, one will take to female body also, because this male body is very rarely given to those who have some scope for advancement. So one will fall down if one does not purify one's existence as soon as he gets the male body. So therefore, the parampara process is given, knowledge is given. So But as we start getting entangled in material nature, this knowledge is lost. So, like here, Prabhupada is giving the example of so-called psychologists and philosophers. So all this, actually, the so-called science of psychology, psychiatry, medical sciences, they are just the biggest fraud of Maya. They are actually meant to entangle us deeper and deeper in this world. In reality, everyone has a designated lifespan of 70, 80 years, not more than that. All the hospitals and all the researchers, medical researchers, all the doctors of the world cannot change that fact. The death will come. So that is simply an instrument of Maya that one thinks that one can extend his lifespan. One will live only as much as one is destined to live. And once that time is over, nobody can save him. One can at best help a little bit to make this existence comfortable. But beyond that, it is impossible. So the so-called psychologists, philosophers, doctors, they're just fooling the whole society and entangling them more and more into this material nature. So the process is we accept the knowledge. Mahajana yena gataha sapantha. Scriptures have many paths, many processes. But the great souls, Mahatmas, Mahajanas, they know what has to be done. And by following in their footsteps, we can also know what has to be done. Just like in the forest, there are many paths. But if you want to reach your destination, there is one path for you. So you follow that path and you will be able to get out. Otherwise, you will keep roaming inside the forest. So just like that, Mahajanas show us the way out of this material world by their own actions. Yes, any questions or comments? We continue. Text 76, 77. Yatha trana jalukeyam
Yathatranyalukeyam
napayatya apayatiya cha.
नापयात अपयाति च
न त्यजेन म्रियमाणो pi
न तेजेन म्रियमाणोऽपि
Yamanopi
प्रागदेहाभिमतिं जनः.
प्राग्देहाभिमतं जनः
यावद् अन्यं न विन्देत
यावं न अन्यं न विन्देत
व्यवधानेन कर्मणा.
व्यवधानेन कर्मणाम्
मन एव मनुष्येन्द्र
मन एव
Manusyendra
भूतानां भवभावनम्.
भूतानां भवभावनम्. May I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Ji. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ji ki Jai. Translation. The caterpillar transports itself from one leaf to another by capturing one leaf before giving up the other. Similarly, according to the previous work, the living entity must capture another body before giving up the one he has. This is because the mind is the reservoir of all kinds of desires. Purport. A living entity too much absorbed in the material activity becomes very much attracted to the material body. Even at the point of death, he thinks of its present body and the relatives connected to it. Thus, he remains fully absorbed in the bodily conception of life so much so that even at the point of death, he abhors leaving his present body. Sometimes it is found that the person on the verge of the death remains in the coma for many days before giving up the body. This is common amongst so-called leaders and politicians who think that without their presence, the entire country and all society will be in chaos. That is called Maya. Political leaders do not like to leave their political posts, and they either have to be shot by an enemy or obliged to leave by the arrival of death. By superior arrangement, a living entity is offered another body, but because of his attraction to the present body, he does not like to transfer himself to another body. Thus, he is forced to accept another body by the law of nature. Prakriti kriyamanani gune karmani sarvasha ahankar vimudatma kartam iti manyate. The bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself activities that are actually carried out by nature. Bhagavad Gita 3.27. Material nature is very strong, and the material modes force one to accept another body. This force is visible when the living entity transmigrates from a superior body to an inferior one. One who acts like a dog or a hog in the present body will certainly be forced to accept the body of a dog or a hog in the next life. A person may be enjoying the body of a prime minister or a president, but when he understands that he will be forced to accept the body of a dog or a hog, he chooses not to leave the present body. Therefore, he lies in the coma many days before death. These have been experienced by many politicians at the time of death. The conclusion is that the next body is already determined by superior control. The living entity immediately gives up the present body and enters another. Sometimes in the present body, the living entity feels that many of his desires and imaginations are not fulfilled. Those who are overly attracted to their life situation are forced to remain in a ghostly body and are not allowed to enter another gross body. Even in the body of the ghost, they create disturbances for neighbors and relatives. The mind is the prime cause of such a situation. According to one's mind, different type of bodies are generated. One is forced to accept them. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 8.6, yam yam vapi smaran bhavam te tvaya त्यजति ante kalevaram tam tam evati kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavita. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. Without one's body and mind, one can think as either a dog or a god, and the next life is offered to him accordingly. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita 13.22. Purusha prakriti sthohi bhunkte prakritijan gunan karnam guna sangosya sad asad yoni janmasu. The living entity is immaterial nature, thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil among various species. The living entity may migrate to either a superior or inferior body according to his association with the modes of material nature. If he associates with the mode of ignorance, he gets a body of an animal or an inferior man. But if he associates with the mode of goodness or passion, he gets a body accordingly. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 14.18. Urdhavam gachanti sattvastha madhye tishtanti rajasa jaganya guna vrittistha adho gachanti tamasa. Those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets, and those in the mode of passion live on earthly planet, and those in the mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds. The root cause of one's association is the mind. This great Krishna conscious movement is the greatest boon to human society because it is teaching everyone to think always of Krishna by executing devotional service. In this way, at the end of life, one may be transferred to the association of Krishna. This is technically called Nitya Leela Pravishta, entering into the planet Golok Vrindavan. Bhagavad Gita 18.55 explains, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yas chasmi tatvata tato mam tatvato gyatva vishyate tad anantaram. One can understand the Supreme Personality as he is only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of the Supreme Lord, by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of the God. After the mind is completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness, one can enter the planet known as Golok Vrindavan. To enter the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one has to understand Krishna. The process of understanding Krishna is devotional service. After understanding Krishna as he is, one can become eligible to enter Krishna Loka and associate with him. The mind is the cause of such an exalted position. The mind can also get a body like those of dogs or hogs. To absorb the mind always in Krishna consciousness is therefore the greatest perfection of human life. Thank you, Ji. Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Yes. See, our desires, they create a new body. Our actions and our desires. So, actions, karma and ichha, both. They both decide our next body. So like caterpillar, you see this thing called inchworm. You see it a lot in India also. It's like a green caterpillar with 4 legs, 2 at the front and 2 at the back. And it always like curls up, then it stretches itself, then it again curls, and then again it stretches. This inchworm or this kind of caterpillar, it always hops from one leaf to another. So one in this life, one creates the body for the next birth already. And when that body is ready and the karmas of this body are finished, one takes up the next one. However, if one becomes overly attached to this body, one is not able to give it up, and then one takes the ghostly form. So you see, if the death is untimely, or if one is overly attached to this body, one will take a ghostly form. So in the first case, because the time is not complete, duration is not complete, the next body is not complete, one is obliged to stay as a ghost. And in the second case, the second body is ready, but one is not willing to take it. Like Prabhupada used to say that Nehru became a dog in Switzerland. So, I mean, Prabhupada said that once in one of his conversations. So, the living entity has to purify one's desires. So, if one wants to go back to Godhead, one has to think like God. One has to purify one's consciousness. So, here it is said, Urdhvam gachanti sattvastha, madhye tishtanti rajasa, jaganya gunavritti stha, adho gachanti tamasa. So those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on earthly planets. And those in the mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds. So you see, present day Kali Yuga is more or less hellish only. It's like, there's no chance of even taking birth in earthly planets. Most of the people have hellish mentality. Harsh speech, unclean habits, unclean minds, deceitful, political minded. All this is a destination creating a destination, hellish destination for us. Like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say, especially, that if one has a political mind, then one can never attain devotion. Like he says, a low-class sinner may still attain the love of Godhead by extraordinary mercy of the Lord. But one who has Kutaniti in his mind, one whose heart is contaminated with political thought, such a person can never attain Krishna. So you can understand, you can see our devotee community and understand who is going back to Godhead here. So you see, that's the reason why you must be very careful while selecting a spiritual master also. Because spiritual master must be an Uttam Adhikari. If he is not, like Prabhupada says, one can take initiation even from a Kanishta Adhikari. But one will not proceed beyond the level of his Guru. Guru is Kanishta, the disciple will remain a Kanishta. He cannot exceed that. That's why we say Mahajana Yena Gataha Sapantha. So if one constantly, so you see, when we chant the holy names constantly, when we are constantly thinking of Krishna, our consciousness is slowly getting transferred to Krishna. Aradhyo Bhagwan Vrajesh Tanaya Tathama Vrindavan. Krishna and Vrindavan are non-different. So when we think of Krishna, we think of Vrindavan, we are gradually transferring ourselves there. Kali Kale Nama Rupi Krishna Avatar, Nam Haite Haya Sarva Jagata Nistar. So if we are constantly chanting the holy name, Nam Haite Haya Sarva Jagata Nistar, the whole world can be delivered. Because Krishna is not different from Vrindavan. So when we are chanting, we are already in Vrindavan. But the condition is that the chanting must be nice. It must be pure chanting. It should not be a customary chanting. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Not this kind of. Chanting should be prayerful chanting. If you have chanted 16 rounds and you concentrated on one round, you have actually chanted only one round. So that is chanting. So one has to chant continuously to transfer one's consciousness onto the plane of Krishna. Then one can attain Krishna consciousness. Then at the end of this body, one will attain spiritual world. Otherwise, one will hang around in the material world itself. Yes, any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, in the second paragraph here, it said, a person may be enjoying the body of a prime minister or a president, but when he understands that he will be forced to accept the body of a dog or hog, he chooses not to leave the present body. Therefore, he lies in a coma many days before death. Does this mean that the person who is in coma, his next body is already revealed to him?
Yeah, the consciousness is already there. The Yamdutas are waiting for him.
No, but does he know that he will go to a body of a dog or a hog?
Yes, why not? Because at the end of this life, he knows what his consciousness is. He's able to see the sum total of his consciousness. So he's not on the gross plane anymore. He's slowly into the subtle plane. So there, all these things become visible.
Achha. Because such a person mostly is an atheist, or he doesn't believe that he has done anything wrong, or whatever he has done will land him into such a body. So that means this has to be revealed to him that time.
Yeah, this is revealed. See, it doesn't matter whether he believes or not. Karma is acting. He will see his destiny.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Like Prabhuji, Ajamila, the Yamadutas came, so he knew he was going to hell.
Yes.
That could be that kind of reference exists. So I don't. Yeah, but that will be a good thing for a totally atheistic person to see somebody and he's like, "Oh my God, what have I done?"
Yeah, that is true actually. Because see, it doesn't matter whether one is a Hindu or a Muslim. One may say, "Oh, I am a Muslim. I don't believe in Hindu gods." But at the end of death, when Yamdutas come, then he'll believe everything.
Sure, Prabhu.
So everything will be revealed immediately. Yes, Ananda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Continuing with the part that a living entity who has been sinful will be given some signs or some clues by which he'll come to know that definitely he will be not getting a human body in his next birth. But how is this he going to coma, a living entity going to coma becomes a technique for him to avoid the next body? And nobody can avoid the next body. So how going to coma is delaying it? How it is possible?
No, it is not possible. He just hangs in there, then he's taken away. If police comes to arrest me and I don't open my main door, the police is going to wait there. They'll say, "Okay, don't open the door. We'll wait for you." So someday I'll have to open the door, then they'll arrest me. Or they'll wait for some hours, and when I don't open, they'll break it down and arrest me.
Does that mean the living entity doesn't leave a body in coma state? One person is coma, he is not dead.
He's not dead. He's not dead. He's able to perceive, but he can't die.
And there is no such case like a person dies in the coma stage.
Well, eventually they die. Like sometimes they can come back, sometimes they die. It's like this, Prabhu. Like the train has reached Howrah terminus, you're not getting down. Now there is no driver, there is no locomotive. The train is simply waiting in the yard. So this is what coma is. The body has stopped. Prakriti has stopped acting there. The karma is finished. So Prakriti has stopped, but this man is just hanging in there, hoping that the body will restart.
Okay.
Krishna Prabhu, but that is, the body is still in some amount of functional condition, na? Either artificially by the ventilator and all, and that is why the living entity is still hanging around. If this is not done only, then there is no chance for the living entity to.
Yeah, so some like Howrah Mail is now reached the terminus, so locomotive will be attached there, the brakes will be functioning, electricity would be running, but the train is not going to go. Sometimes you see in the depot, the bus comes and the driver steps out, the engine is running, lights are on, but the bus is not going anywhere because the driver has left. So it's like that. The body will continue, like some base rudimentary functions are running, but the body is not going to work anymore.
So like many deaths do occur in coma. Finally, a time comes when the liver starts failing, the heart, the kidneys start failing and all, they go into septic shock and all, and then they die.
Yes.
So even if they are maintained on life-sustaining devices.
So your engine is running, when the diesel tank is empty, the engine will stop. So when Prana Shakti is finally finished, the body will start. Like so many coma patients go into gangrenous stage and all.
So that means that the body ka Pran Shakti is still there. That is why the patient is in coma. So that is the body is still able to sustain if that living entity can still enter again.
The living
So-
entity is pushing it. The living entity is pushing it.
So can we here apply this concept that that Kshetra and Kshetrajna concept that the living entity, or that is the like human body, if we consider the living entity of the human body is the master soul, and there are many other cells which are there. Each cell is again a living entity of its own.
Correct?
So those things are still in function for us some time.
Yes. They'll continue functioning, but now the time has finished. So
Yeah.
the living entity is supposed to leave it, but he's not leaving, so it will
So-
continue.
So the master is not there, and it's just a some time difference by which they'll realize that things will stop, and even these all entities will die. That is, all the entire body will also become dysfunctional.
Yeah.
But then, Prabhuji, how do you explain those people who come back to life after many years of coma?
So their time is not done yet. They're just supposed to live that way. You know, sometimes like your car is stuck in a signal for a long time, like 2 hours. There's some accident on the highway, the car is stuck. So you're stuck there 2 hours, 3 hours, and then the traffic clears, and then you will go. But sometimes the car is completely broken, then you can't go. You have to leave. So this is just like some occurrences here and there in the nature.
Means we have seen people even after 25, 30 years coming out of coma and then living, a relatively normal life.
Yeah, so their time is not up. They're just supposed to live in an inactive stage for that much time.
So in this inactive stage, also the actual living entity, the soul, may be suffering only because a soul would prefer action over inaction, and
Yes.
it'll be very much binded, like a tree would like to do sense enjoyment, but is restricted because of its bodily nature. Similarly, being in coma, the living entity really is not happy actually.
No, not at all.
The entity is suffering only.
Yes.
So, like he may avoid death, or the entity may prolong the death, or in case he may become something like a hibernating stage. But then it is not something really appreciable for the nature of the soul also. Like it is very suffocating actually for the soul also.
Yeah. These are all just reactions of bad karmas.
So that is also one of the type of reactions we can say. Going to coma is also a reaction only.
Yeah, just a bad reaction. Like, yes,
Prabhuji,
Reshma.
so can
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
sorry, go
Yes.
ahead.
Prabhuji, as we have seen that person who's in coma, he has an idea about his next destination. So then suppose he comes out of coma, that time he will remember something, no, what his next destination is going to be. And he can
Not
improve
necessary.
also, no?
Not necessary. If he's just in coma, like, sometimes you give anesthesia, that is also coma. So unless the time is over. So here what we are talking about is when the lifespan is over.
Okay.
And the demon doesn't want to leave the body. Then he knows what is his destination, but he's not wanting to leave. But in case of someone who is like bound by karma to be suffering coma, then they won't see because their time is still remaining.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Anumat.
So, Prabhuji, that means the mind has so much of stuff behind in the form of desire or ambition that it's still not letting the living entity go. Still stuck in the coma position. But then why does Yamaduta then waits, knowing living entity will be suffering anyways?
See, Prabhupada also explains elsewhere in Bhagavatam that actually it is the time when the judgment is being passed on this living entity. He doesn't want to leave. He's struggling with Yamadutas. His judgment is taking such a long time, so he's stuck. And I mean, it's not a happy state to be in coma. The body is inactive. It's suffering. Like there was this, there's this incident of this lady who was in coma for some 5-10 years. And she was explaining that she was fully conscious. So her son and husband would come and talk to her. She would know that. The doctors and nurses would come and make fun of her. She knew that also. Then one day they performed a surgery on her without anesthesia, and she felt the entire pain of surgery. So all these things she mentioned when she got up. So coma is not a pleasant time at all.
Mhm. So Yamdutas are passing. There is a judgment that's happening how to handle the living entity because the living entity is not willing to go. That's the
Yeah.
judgment that they are waiting for.
Yes.
But then, okay, then we say the next body is already ready. So when the next body is already ready, regardless the living entity is willing to go or not, the living entity still gotta go, no?
Yes. So then eventually he has to leave. I mean, Winston Churchill was in coma for 6 months. Nehru was in coma for a few weeks. Vajpayee was in
Because
coma for such a long time.
means such a strong desire or whatever that attachment would be.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Like, of course, Indira Gandhi was shot dead, but if you see Modi will be also sticking around for quite some time. Too much attachment. You know, I am the king, I am the ruler. So many people, like I am the owner of this country. So this kind of thought process there. See, previous ages, kings were trained to leave after the age of 50. Because a king's position is very dangerous. Here, like, Narad Muni is explaining that, my dear Prachina Barhi, your position is extremely dangerous. We saw that example of that deer he was giving. That, my dear king, your position is very dangerous. It's very precarious position. The king is taking 1/6 the karma of all the public, so he's in a very dangerous situation. So that's why they are themselves sinful, and then they are taking sins of others. So they are in an extremely dangerous situation.
And then they are approving slaughterhouses and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean everyone. I mean, see, like the present government has approved so many cow slaughterhouses in Northeast India. 7 states of North India: Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, and Assam. These states have got cow slaughter legal. And even cows from Vrindavan are slaughtered there, just in case you thought something. Vrindavan cows incidentally go to Andhra Pradesh for slaughter.
Very sad.
Yeah, that's the reality.
Considering this is south.
Yeah, most of the
you would
so-called.
think.
Yeah, Andhra is south. Southeastern coast of India. Religious leaders are just demons. They're just demons. Just pretending to be sadhus and sannyasis and all, they're just demons. They're here to just enjoy their senses. They have no faith in Krishna, no faith in Acharya. Yeah. So we continue.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, text 78. 78, okay. Yadakshesh Charitan Dhyayan.
Yadakshesh Charitan Dhyayan.
Karman Achi Nute Sukrit.
Karman Yachi Nute Sukrit.
Sati Karmanya Avidyayam.
Sati Karmanya Avidyayam.
Bandha Karmanya Anatmana.
Bandha Karmanya Anatmana.
Read, Prabhu.
Yes, please.
Translation and purport by Divine Grace Swami Prabhupada. Translation. As long as we desire to enjoy sense gratification, we create material activities. When the living entity acts in the material field, he enjoys the senses. And while enjoying the senses, he creates another series of material activities. In this way, the living entities become entrapped as a conditioned soul. Purport. While in the subtle body, we create many plans to enjoy sense gratification. These plans are recorded in the spool of one's mind as vijaya, the root of fruitive activities. In conditional life, the living entity creates a series of bodies, one after another, and they are called karma bandhana. As explained in the Bhagavad Gita 3.9, Yajnartat karmano anyatra loko ayam karma bandhanaha. If we act only for the satisfaction of Vishnu, There is no bondage due to material activity. But if we act otherwise, we become entrapped by one material activity after another. Under these circumstances, it is to be supposed that by thinking, feeling, and willing, we are creating a series of future material bodies. In the words of Bhaktivinoda Thakura, Anadi Karma Pale Adi Bhavarnava Jale. The living entity falls into the ocean of karma bandhana as a result of past material activities. Instead of plunging oneself into the ocean of material activity, one should accept material activity only to maintain body and soul together. The rest of one's time should be devoted to engaging in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. In this way, one can attain relief from the reactions of material activity. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes. So while enjoying the senses, he creates another series of material activities. In this way, the living entity becomes entrapped as a conditioned soul. It's very simple, like a boy goes to some school, then he sees a girl, he falls in love. Then he gets married, he has children. So ato grah kshetra sutapta vittair. Now the children will start doing something, and then the man becomes responsible for that karma. Then sometimes the wife goes away and the man becomes disturbed. Actually, none of this would have happened if he would have simply restrained his senses. Dhyayato vishayana pumsha sangasteshu pajayate. Sangat sanjayate kama kamat krodho vijayate. So krodhat bhavati sammoha. So krodh leads to sammohan, illusion. So in this way, illusion leads to the loss of intelligence. So in this way, one falls back into material whirlpool. So all of this happens simply because the living entity contemplates sense objects. Like many years ago, I remember, there was a boy. There was a man actually. He was into some export-import business, and he loved motorcycles. So he got this Suzuki Hayabusa. Suzuki R1000R, Suzuki Hayabusa, the fastest motorbike at that time. So his friend used to love motorcycles also. So this friend, he wanted to test this motorcycle. So this man who got the motorcycle, he warned him. He said, this is a very powerful motorcycle. This is not like what you have ever ridden before in life. So you be extremely cautious. Man, he thought, how different can it be? It's just a motorcycle. So he sat on it, he put it into gear and he throttled it up. And this motorcycle just flew. And this man, he hit a pole. He was thrown away for some 20 meters. He hit another pole and he went into coma. And the motorcycle was badly damaged. Brand new motorcycle. The man who got it himself had just tried it once. And the motorcycle was completely junked. So you see, all because of contemplation of action. Now, simply if he wouldn't have tried this motorcycle, he would be happy and healthy. Now he's in coma, or I don't know whether he recovered or died or whatever, but he was in a very bad shape. So you see, one action leads to another. And eventually, like you see, in what you call this, in the criminal procedure code, there's a particular category of crimes known as crimes of passion. Crimes of passion, this is a legal term. Crime of passion means people who have fallen in and out of love affairs and then they have committed some crime like murder or something. Like there's a story of this girl who fell in love with some hoodlum boy, and at his kind of behest, she ended up murdering her parents. And this boy obviously ran away. So now she doesn't have so-called love, and she's even lost her parents and she's in jail. Crimes of passion. All of this happens simply because the living entity is not able to control the mind and indulges in the sense gratificatory activities and becomes more and more entangled. But what to do for a living entity who's already entangled? So here it is mentioned, yajnatharth karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work binds one to this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction. And in this way, you will always remain unattached and free from bondage. So, you want to eat, you offer bhoga. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhaktya prachati. So, you offer bhoga to Krishna. Or Okay, you want to get married? Krishna says that sex life which is not contrary to religion, that is me. So yes, so you beget Krishna conscious children. Not that, oh, my son is an engineer, my son is a doctor, my son is so and so. That is all nonsense. Your child should be devotee. Otherwise, it is illicit sex. Straight up. So you beget Krishna conscious children. You want some money? Definitely go ahead and earn, but use it in the service of Vishnu. You have intelligence. Don't use it in the service of some rascals and just engage in this so-called politics and so many things. Use that intelligence in trying to understand Krishna through scriptures, through sadhu sangha. In this way, anything that we have can be used in the service of Krishna. So the senses should be, executed. The activities of the senses should be executed as a service to Krishna or Vishnu. Otherwise, one will become entangled in the material nature. Yes. Any questions or comments?
Prabhuji, what happened to those who are in two boats? So, for example, people like us who are in two boats, like we are trying to serve two, and we are thinking, feeling, and willing is both ways. It's towards spirituality and material world too.
So we'll go to heavenly planets and enjoy there. And then we'll gradually realize that this enjoyment is not worth it. Then we'll go back to Godhead someday.
Unless we clarify, unless we have enough life that we think that we clarify our consciousness here.
Yes. See, it will take many lifetimes. Bhakti won't come immediately. Srila Prabhupada said 300 lifetimes. For Malay Dhwaj, it took 30,000 years. So it's going to take some time for us.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Yes, any other questions or comments? Okay, so we stop here today. Sorry, I have slightly bad throat and fever, so I cannot continue anymore and my throat is paining a lot. We continue tomorrow, text 80 onwards. Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Thank you. Dandat Pranam.
Krishna,
Dandar Pranam, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Dandat Pranam.